So today I want to do a video about how to create an image wall similar to this. I'm going to show you the process that I went through to create it and give you some information about some things I learned along the way.
All right, so I'm going to show you the process that I went to create this photo wall. And I kind of got the part of the inspiration off of Amazon when I was looking for frames to do this project with. I used black frames. These ones shown here have a brown outline, but mine are black. Just choose whatever you like. What I wanted to do is I wanted them to be square because it would make them look more professional printed rather than 8.5 by 11 in an 8.5 by 11 frame. I wanted them to have mats on them, the white part that goes around the picture. If I blow it up here, you can see that the matting there's two different kinds here. Let me see if I can blow it up here. There's two different mats in there. There's a 10-inch one and an 8-inch one. And so, depending on what I was going to print, I could use different mats. Um, what I chose to do is I wanted to do all the printing at home because what I want to do is as I get better at post processing or if I get another image that is more fabulous than one that's hanging on the wall. I want to be able to replace those pictures and prints inside the frames. And these frames, here's a picture of the back. They just have these little clip things on them that you swivel and turn, and then you can take the back off and replace the print. And so these ones, the ones that I got were 8-inch as the smallest frame size right here. These ones are 7.5 or 9.5, depending on if you use both mats or just one. What I chose to do is just use both of the mats because then I could print it on my own printer and use regular sized 8.5 by 11 paper. And then I don't have to go get it printed somewhere. I can print as many as I want to. If it messes up and I don't like it, I can print my own. I don't have to save files and send them out and get them printed somewhere. So I decided to get a frame that would allow me to print my own images. Whether I cut those or not, it would just depend on if it would fit inside the frame. But since these are 12, well, this one is 11.5 by 11.5. This one, it fits 12 by 12, so I guess it's 12 by 12 along here, but it'll do an 11.5 by 11.5 and fill the whole entire frame. But I wanted to be able to print my own because then I could swap out those pictures if I got something, if I were to do some more processing and got a better image, I could replace it. Whether I just wanted to switch them up occasionally just for a change of the scenery, I could do that myself. So my ultimate goal was to be able to print it myself, and then I could just put it inside this frame. And so those frames, I just got them on Amazon. It was $40 for a pack of 9. They came in a box. These frames are not super heavy duty. They're very plasticky, very lightweight. They do come with a screen glass looking thing, but it's really plastic. It's not glass. So it's very lightweight. And I didn't really care as long as it looked good. I wanted it to look like it was professionally mounted and framed. But that's kind of what I went with is this 12 by 12 frame. I wanted it to be square so that it would look more custom. And then, so that's something I purchased that was a set of 9. So that was all the ones that you saw on my wall were one pack. So it was $40 for 9 of them. But I can use these over and over again, so I thought it was a fairly decent deal. They are not the most high quality frames. These are nothing that are going to be um, elegant for, the look. If anybody took it off the wall, they feel kind of flimsy and really lightweight. But hanging on the wall and looking at them, they look like an ebony ivory kind of look. And so I really did like these frames. They got pretty decent ratings. And so that's what I chose for the frame. So I chose it mainly so it will look custom and so I can replace the picture that's in them. I also, one of the criteria was I wanted to be able to print my own picture. So, that's the criteria I used. You can choose what you're going to do for yours. Another thing I did buy is I got some photo paper and I just looked on there for the cheapest photo paper really I could find. This is a pack of 30 and it was $7 for a pack of 30 printer glossy photo paper. I really wouldn't need it to be glossy other than I wanted it to look professional. I wanted it to look like I had them printed somewhere. So I chose to go with the glossy size. These are just standard 8.5 by 11. They'll go in an inkjet printer. And so that's what I chose to use. I wanted something cheap to start with because I just really didn't know if it was going to look professional or not. And so I went with cheap and I think they turned out pretty nice and going cheap was fine because they are covered with the plastic screen. It looks like it's glass, but it's really plastic. And so you do have a glossy look from that plastic in addition to the glossy photo paper. And so go cheap, try out what you want to while you're practicing. You could even just print them on regular paper if you don't want to use the photo paper just to see if they'll fit in your frames and things. But to frame them, you're going to want a nice heavy duty photo paper of some sort. It wouldn't have to be glossy. That's just what I chose to do is with glossy. So let me show you how I did it. So the image that I'm going to show you on is M31. And all I did is I took that image right off of the Seestar. And then let's see, let me close this window, close that window. I emailed it to myself and then I saved it on my desktop so that I'd be able to find it. And if I double click on that, it shows you that picture. There's that M31. I cropped it a little bit when I was editing it in the Seestar app. It has quite a bit of exposure time, 425 minutes. And this is what it looks like coming up straight off the Seestar. I did do some darkening and some editing in the Seestar app, but that's all the editing I did. I didn't export it into Serial and stack it or use Graxpert or PixInsight. I didn't use anything like that. All I did was use the Seestar app and then I emailed it to myself. And then once I got it in the email, I saved it to my desktop just for the ease of finding it when I was ready to print the object. And so then what I did is I just opened Word and I did a blank document. And then here's a blank document. And what I did is I changed all the margins so that I could print it really close to the margins. And using a laptop mouse, sometimes you have to move those little tab um, I don't know what they're called, those little icon thingies. And then I just stretched it to the edges of the paper because my opening on my frame is 8 by 8. And so this is 8.5 by 11. And so I know that I want it to at least be 8 and preferably a little bit bigger so that I don't have to center it right on the whole of the frame. And so I did do it just a little, I did it right to the edges of the paper, and that would give me a half of an inch or so, maybe not quite a half of an inch because I still do have a little bit of edge along the sides. So right close to a quarter of an inch to a half inch to work with when I'm going to put it on the frame. And then what I did is I go up to insert and I'm going to insert a picture. and the picture is saved on my device. And so then I'm going to go to my desktop and there's that image. Select it and click insert. And you see it filled up that page right there. And then it comes down here. What I needed to do is make sure that I could cut off all of this identifying things down here at the bottom because I don't want that showing in the frame. And right now we're sitting right at 8, and so it's a little bit tight here. I don't want it to be close enough that it's going to show that text from the Seestar app. So I did stretch it just a little bit just to give me a little bit more wiggle room. If you're stretching it using this, it will stretch the whole picture just a little bit, but where I was just stretching it a little bit, it shouldn't make any difference. If it does make a difference, you would want to use the corner and stretch it that way and stretch it as much as you need that way so that it doesn't distort the picture at all. And so that's what I've got on the screen. Um, when I was printing it, I did find that especially on these ones that are pretty dark already, that they could print fairly dark on my printer. So this is something that you'll just have to test with your own printer. And so if you like this and it prints well for you, you could just go in and print it from here. But I did go into this corrections thing and it gives you all of these options. And if you hover over these options, it shows you some corrections that it will allow you to make. And you see that they can change wildly. And so you just need to find the one that you like the best. And then you can use that as a way of enhancing it. I would err on the side of making the galaxy a little bit lighter and adding brightness to it. And just because when I printed it, it printed so dark that occasionally I would lose some of the nebulosity around the galaxy if I didn't lighten it a little bit more than I thought I should. And so this is the how I added it into Word. And then the next thing I did is I just went up here into File and Print. Now don't just print it right here like it is because it's going to just print on a letter sized sheet, which is fine. But if you go in here to the print properties, you'll see that it goes to a plain paper type and it's borderless is off on all these things. So all I changed in here is I changed that plain paper to a other glossy inkjet paper. So I changed that. If you were using a specific HP kind brand of photo paper, I would select that. But I was just using some generic brand, cheap brand. If you used a matte paper, choose the matte paper, but I was using glossy. That tells the printer how much ink to use and, makes it print a little nicer. Then another thing I did is on this print quality, I went and did it to the best because I wanted to make sure that as it prints, it's going to fill in any of those gaps. I wanted it to print a high quality print. And then you just click OK. And then you come back here and you click print. And then it prints on your printer. It will if you print a lot, it's going to use up some ink because it's printing a nice photo. And so, keep that in mind as you're printing. If you are just testing it to see if it fits in the frame, do it on a draft print or something. And to do that, you just go to that same print properties and then you can change it right here to draft. And that uses a lot less ink than this best or normal. And so that's where you can change it so that you're not using quite so much ink. If you're just testing it to see if it fits in the frame or, just to see how it's coming out. But if you're going to print it for the frame and you're ready to frame it, I would use a high quality print and then click print and it spits it out onto your printer. But make sure that you've, of course, loaded in the photo paper. And so that's really all I did is I printed those And then I don't need to save that now that I printed it. And then I just went and I loaded it into the frame. I opened the frame. I took the plastic wrap off of the little plastic cover, the glass cover. It's not glass, it's a plastic, but did have a film plastic on it that you peel off, kind of like a tape kind of thing to prevent it from getting scratched. Peeled that off, stacked it all in the frame, and I didn't even have to trim the images because the frames were 12 by 12, and so I was able to just put it in there, center the picture over the whole of the mat, and then put the back on, and I stuck it on the wall. And so that's how I printed these to get a gallery wall of some of my images. I do like the idea that I can change those images as I get better, or if I get better prints of certain things. Initially, I did print a copy of the Pleiades, but it wasn't a fabulous image that I had, and so once the Pleiades is more visible, I will gather a lot more exposures and get that a better print of that. But I can exchange these photos and rotate them around. I could change them as much as I want. But anyway, I thought it would be fun to show you how I created the gallery wall. And next I'll show you how I hung them on the wall and give you some tips there.
So some things I learned along the way. The frames came with these little nails that kind of stick out from the wall a little bit. And so I was going to put them in with nails. And then I quickly found out that it's too easy to get off by just a little bit. And so you see I have an extra hole here. Well, that's because it was off just a little bit. I used tape measures, I used levels. You know, maybe you guys are more skilled at that than I am. But I decided for the remainder of them that I was just going to use these command strips. And they just stick to the wall. And let me see here. And then you just stick the frame on, and then it sticks into that Velcro command strip, and then it sticks to the wall. And so I found that easier to align them and make them stack up evenly than doing the nails. And then you can remove those command strips from the wall if you need to. So that was something I learned as I was hanging these. So this is kind of what I ended up with. I did have to rotate it so that I could fit it on the screen, and it is taking it a little bit of an angle, so it looks like some of the pictures are not aligned. They are, it's just from the angle of the photo that I took. So this is how I did a gallery wall of some of the images I've taken off of the Seestar. The majority of these images were directly straight off the Seestar. It cost me less than $50 to create this gallery wall, and I thought it turned out quite nice. You could rearrange the frames so that they were in more of a stacked image instead of just square with 3 by 3 squares. You could do 4 across one row, 3 across the next, 2 across the bottom. You know, you could stack them in different ways on the wall, whatever you have room for and what looks good in your space. But it was a fun project, and one I hope to change with different images as I gather more or preferences. Good conversation starter for when company comes. But this was creating a gallery wall. Pretty cheap project, easy to do, fun to display some of the images that are coming off of the Seestar. We hope you have enjoyed watching this video. Excuse me, got a tickle in my throat. But hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, the little project. Send me some images of creations that you've done. I'd love to see some. And as always, we're wishing everybody clear skies, and thanks for watching.